The growth of personal liability in financial services is a worldwide phenomenon, which in the UK is now enshrined in the senior manager and certification regime. Already applicable to banks and insurers, the regime will be extended to almost all financial services personnel before the end of this year. It's of paramount importance, therefore, that those people who are bearing increased responsibility understand what that means in practice. To that end, two of my colleagues at Thomson Reuters Regulatory Intelligence have written a very timely book. Stacey English and Susannah Hammond are with me to talk a little bit now about this publication. And thank you, Susannah and Stacey, for coming in. Susannah, first of all, for you or for Stacey?
For Stacey.
For Stacey. So yeah. Why the book? Yes, why the book and why now?
Well, at Thomson Reuters Regulatory Intelligence, we've been tracking hundreds of developments on accountability and the SMCR. And Bloomsbury Professional felt that actually what the industry needed was a single practical guide that the people working in financial services could use to help them navigate this whole new world. So they asked us if we could write some expert practical guidance to help the industry. And that's how the book came about. But the timing is really critical because, as you say, the banks adopted this in 2016. It was rolled out to insurers just at the end of last year. But actually this year it's going to be rolled out to the rest of the industry, and that's about 47,000 other firms.
Okay, so it couldn't be more timely. Susannah, then turning
yes.
to you. So who is the book aimed at?
Well, it's not just aimed at compliance officers, let me make that very clear. It's very much aimed at all senior individuals in a firm, and that of course includes risk and compliance officers. Mm-hmm. Particularly what we have tried to do is make it as practical as possible. I mean, for goodness sake, anyone can read the FCA rulebook or whatever, but great, you've read the rulebook, then what do you actually do to be compliant? Mm-hmm. That's the element we've hopefully focused on in this. And to be frank, if it helps senior managers engage a little bit more, talk little bit more knowledgeably with their compliance function, that's all to the good too.
Okay. So, the book covers the UK senior manager and certification regime and its rollout. So is it fair to say then that the book is really only aimed at UK senior managers?
Well, certainly the UK has led the way with the rollout of the UK SMCR, so it will be of most relevance to UK senior managers. But that said, the regime is much wider in its reach, and it will impact senior managers who are based overseas but hold certain responsibilities and roles that mean they actually have an impact on UK customers. Okay. So it's not as simple as just those based in the UK. But what we're also seeing is a really big global focus on accountability, with other jurisdictions rolling out very similar rules or proposing very similar rules. So regions as diverse as Ireland and Singapore and Australia and Hong Kong are all similarly starting to have these rules in place. So it's very much an international issue.
So some of the sort of the implementation plans that you might that are set out in here would be equally applicable whether you were looking at the UK regime or a regime elsewhere in the world, presumably.
Certainly there'll be lots of learnings of implementing that regime, running that regime, and then lots of other broader issues that are applicable outside of that regime.
Yeah. Okay. So there are some deeply practical sections in the book covering things like regulatory relationship management, outsourcing, kinds of policies that firms need to have in place in order to cope with this regime, and dawn raids, regulatory investigations, all of that kind of good stuff. So what are you hoping that senior managers are going to glean from the book?
I think it's to begin to get a better grasp on the how as well as the what. One of the key themes of recent years in regulatory terms right around the world has been the rise of culture and conduct risk. And that is very much the focus on the how as well as the what. Now, there are a lot of challenges associated with the how. What does good look like? How do you evidence it? How do you begin to think about the bigger, wider picture? But that encompasses everything. It's not just the SMCR. Personal liability, accountability, your regulatory expectations to be doing the right thing are much broader than the SMCR. And hopefully this book will give senior managers that little bit more help and guidance as to not only what good might look like, but then how you evidence you've done the right thing and therefore hopefully discharged your personal liability.
Yeah, okay, so it goes beyond, as you said, anyone can read the rules, but
Exactly.
it's about understanding what to do with them.
Yeah.
So there's a section in the book about HR and the increasing role of HR. Now, of course, there is a theory that anything to do with compliance is the role of the compliance department. So how does HR fit into this new world?
Well, the new rules are all about people, about their responsibilities, about their behaviours and about the penalties when things go wrong. So it follows that a people function like HR really must play a critical role in both the implementation of the regime and the ongoing involvement in all the processes and systems that underpin the regime. So it's really important that HR are involved early and throughout, so that all the systems, controls, processes are set up to meet the obligations of the SMCR. And these are things right from the recruitment stages through to the reference stages where somebody actually leaves the organisation. And what we found is a lot of firms have to make quite a lot of changes to those systems right through that employee life cycle. So we've set a separate section out that's got all of the obligations and expectations around those processes, and that's things like remuneration, onboarding and training.
Mm-hmm. So, right, the clear message there that it's not going to work unless you have HR involved in the process of rolling this out and running it in the future. I noticed when having a look through the book, you've got checklists at the end of each of the chapters. So, what's the thinking behind that? What are people going to get out of using those?
Well, it's not an exam. It's not a test at the end of each chapter. Have you read this properly or whatever? What we're hoping to do is get people to think. Have I done the right things in the right way? Should I think wider? Should I think differently in that sense? Have I considered the entire range of risks actually associated with my business? And the whole book is peppered with case studies and examples and sort of practical lists as to, you mentioned dawn raids earlier. Dawn raids are something you hope will never happen to you. However, if they happen to you, you need to have a strong handle on what to do and how to handle them. The book hopefully gives you that. I mean, that's just one example where, unless you have thought about it beforehand and have a sense of how you will handle it, you have no chance of turning something that's bad, potentially bad, into something that's a total regulatory disaster. This hopefully is the forewarned, forearmed checklist.
So the checklists are kind of like a route map through the morass of the detail, which is fantastic. So the $64,000 question then, Stacey, where can people get hold of a copy of the book?
So it's available online through Bloomsbury Professional. It's also available through bookshops like Waterstones. It's available on Amazon as both a paperback and a Kindle download. And of course, if you buy it there and you like the book, we'd be most grateful for your reviews.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Stacey and Susannah, for telling us about the new book. Indeed, thank you for writing it. I'm Ashley Kovas, Senior Regulatory Intelligence Expert at Thomson Reuters Regulatory Intelligence. And don't forget to take a look at our website, which is at the address on the screen now.